The room buzzed with laughter, the clinking of glasses, and the gentle hum of celebration. My wife, Emma, was the radiant center of this joyful gathering, her hands tenderly cradling the swell of her belly, a symbol of the life we were supposed to be building together. Yet, as I stood there, preparing to make a toast, I felt an unsettling shift in the atmosphere. "Congratulations, everyone," I began, raising my glass with a smile that masked the turmoil brewing within me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded envelope, the weight of it heavy with unspoken truths. The vibrant chatter faded into an uneasy silence, and I noticed Emma's smile falter, her eyes widening with an instinctual understanding that something was amiss. I looked directly at her, my voice steady but my heart racing. "This baby isn't mine." Those words lingered in the air like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over the joyous occasion. A profound silence enveloped us, thick and suffocating, as if the very fabric of our shared reality had been ripped apart. Emma and I had been married for 6 years, a love story that had begun with passionate intensity, but had slowly morphed into a more distant, colder relationship. Emma had longed for a child more than anything else, and after months of trying, she finally became pregnant. Initially, I was overjoyed, but as time passed, dark doubts began to creep in, late-night whispers, unexplained absences, and that gnawing gut feeling that something wasn't right. I tried to trust our relationship, to believe in the love we had built, until that fateful night when her best friend, in a drunken haze at our anniversary party, leaned in and whispered, "She's been lying to you. That baby isn't yours." At first, I dismissed her words as drunken nonsense, but doubt is a virulent infection. Once it takes root, it spreads and consumes everything in its path. I started to observe Emma more closely. Her phone was never out of reach, and I caught the anxious glances she cast when she thought I wasn't watching. The hushed phone calls in the other room began to gnaw at my sanity. Then I stumbled upon it, a text from an unfamiliar name. "I miss you." My blood ran cold. Confronting her that night, I was met with laughter and a flippant dismissal. "You're being paranoid," she said, brushing it off. "Hormones make me emotional. I text all my friends like that." But I wasn't being paranoid. A week later, desperation took hold, and I decided to take matters into my own hands. I arranged for a DNA test. Under the cover of night, while she slept peacefully, I swabbed my cheek and collected a sample from her prenatal test kit. 2 weeks later, the results arrived, and they shattered me. 0% probability of paternity. As I stared at that paper, something deep inside me fractured. I could have walked away quietly, filed for divorce without making a scene, but the realization that Emma had woven this elaborate web of deceit around me, a lie that had paraded me as a devoted husband, infuriated me. She had wanted performance, and I was ready to give her one. The days leading up to the baby's shower were torturous, each passing moment a reminder of the facade I had to maintain. Pretending to be the loving husband while my mind was a tempest of betrayal and hurt was an exhausting act. Emma, oblivious of the maelstrom within me, excitedly discussed nursery colors, baby names, and our bright future. I played along, my smile a mere mask, all while collecting evidence. Screenshots of texts, credit card statements leading to hotel bookings, and a timeline of her deceit. I even pinpointed the real father, a married co-worker who, judging by his panicked avoidance of my calls, wanted nothing to do with this mess. I savored that knowledge. It would make her downfall all the more satisfying. The day of the baby shower arrived, and it was my stage, an opportunity to unveil her betrayal in front of family, friends, and colleagues who deserved to know the truth. As Emma kissed me, her eyes twinkling with joy, she said, "I can't wait for today." I couldn't wait either. The party was lavishly decorated, gifts piled high, and guests filled the room with compliments. Emma basked in the attention, completely unaware of the storm brewing just beneath the surface. When my moment arrived, I clinked my glass and rose to my feet, my heart pounding. I just want to express how honored I am to be here today to celebrate Emma, this incredible woman and the beautiful baby she's carrying. I began, my voice steady. She beamed, her eyes sparkling with pride, but before we toasted, I added, "I have a little surprise." I pulled out the envelope, unfolding it with deliberate slowness, each movement calculated. This, I said, holding up for all to see, is a DNA test. The atmosphere shifted palpably. The air became thick with tension, and I watched as Emma's face drained of color. A few weeks ago, I had some doubts, so like any responsible father would do, I got tested. I turned the paper around to face the crowd, my voice sharp and cutting. It turns out I'm not the father. A gasp rippled through the guests, and I could see Emma's breath hitch in her throat as she struggled to process what was happening. Don't act surprised, Emma, I said, my tone low but menacing. You knew this whole time. Whispers erupted in the crowd, and I could see the horror etched on her parents' faces. Tears began to well in Emma's eyes. Please, let's talk about this privately, she pleaded, desperation lacing her voice. No, I interrupted, my voice firm. You made a spectacle out of this pregnancy. Now let's finish the show. A nervous hush fell over the room as Emma shook her head, frantic. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out my phone, tapping the screen to project a series of text messages onto the TV screen behind me. He thinks it's his. I feel awful, but I can't tell him. What if he finds out? He won't. We just have to play it cool until after the baby is born. Emma's face crumbled, her mother gasping in shock, while her father stood up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Someone in the crowd muttered, "Oh my God!" The final blow came when I turned to her best friend, the one who had unwittingly set this entire cascade of events in motion. You knew, didn't you? I asked, locking eyes with her. She looked down, unable to meet my gaze, her silence confirming everything. The weight of betrayal collapsed upon Emma, and for the first time, she was at a loss for words. I exhaled slowly, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably before delivering the final blow. I'm done, I said, my voice unwavering. I'm done with the lies, the manipulation, the humiliation. Emma reached for me, her eyes wild with panic. Please, we can fix this. I stepped back, the distance between us symbolizing the chasm her betrayal had created. There's nothing to fix, I replied, my voice cold. Turning to the guests, I continued. For those wondering what's next, I'll tell you. I've already filed for divorce. I gestured toward a lawyer standing at the back of the room, the papers ready in his hands. Emma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in disbelief. Oh, and one more thing, I added, my voice laced with venom. Since our house was mine before we married and I have proof of infidelity, you'll be leaving with nothing. Emma's lips trembled, and she looked at me, pleading. No, you wouldn't. I smiled, a grim satisfaction washing over me. I already did. The room erupted in murmurs, confusion, and outrage, and then came the final twist. I turned to the real father, standing stiffly at the back of the room, the panic evident on his face. Congratulations, I said, my tone dripping with sarcasm. You're about to be a dad. Hope you're ready. He paled visibly, and Emma collapsed into a sobbing mess, the weight of her lies crashing down around her. I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, just an overwhelming sense of freedom. The party ended in disaster, guests trickling out while whispering in hushed tones, casting glances at Emma as they left. Her parents refused to look at her, their disappointment palpable, and I walked out without looking back, leaving behind the wreckage of our marriage. In the weeks that followed, I finalized everything, the divorce, the division of my assets, and my fresh start. Emma attempted to reach out, calling, texting, begging for a conversation, but I never responded. She had made her choices. Now she would have to live with the consequences of her actions. I wasn't bitter or broken. I was free. Betrayal doesn't just shatter a heart. It sharpens it, refines it, and prepares it for a new beginning. Emma thought she was playing a game, but she had underestimated me. As I stepped into my new life, I realized that revenge wasn't merely an ending. It was a beginning of something far better.